Hello folks and welcome to App Screencast. Danny here and welcome to the second part of my series on an iPhone user switching over to an Android device. Now this is obviously a larger screen device than what we used to with the iPhone, and that's one of the biggest appeals about this type of device. Now the folks at Free UK were kind enough to send this phone out, and it's actually the HTC Sensation XL. It has a 1.5 GHz processor, it's only single core but obviously very fast. It has a 4.7 inch screen and 16 gigabytes of internal storage. Now there's no memory card slot in this phone, it's all internal storage, very much like the iPhone. Now you can actually switch out the battery if you need to, put a separate spare battery in or second battery if you want extra power, which is pretty cool, you've got that choice. Now obviously the phone has obviously got this large screen, and at first obviously I liked the idea of that, but I was also a bit worried that it perhaps would be a little bit big in the pocket, maybe feel a little bit like I'm carrying a big brick around in my pocket. And to be honest, that's not the case because the phone is very slim. It's very slim. It's almost as slim as the iPhone 4 or 4S, and that was really nice to have it in the pocket because you didn't really know it was there. It was no larger than carrying an iPhone around. So I think most people would probably feel the same about that and find it's quite a pocketable phone. Now it's got kind of a curved or taper edge to the phone, so it fits well in the hand and also gives that illusion it's even thinner than it actually is. Now the phone is made from obviously the glass front, then you've obviously got a metal back with a little bit of plastic. Now this is one of the reasons I do like HTC's phones, is they do use quite high quality materials, a lot of metal, and something over, let's say Samsung, will use a lot of plastic in their phones and don't feel quite as well made, whereas HTC you get a good quality build. Now one complaint about the phone is because it's made of metal and this smooth plastic here, it does feel a little bit slippery in the hand, very similar I guess to an iPhone 4, which is mostly metal and glass. Now a lot of HTC phones do have a little bit of like kind of a rubber feel to them and feel a little bit grippier on parts of the phone. On this it's very smooth all the way around, which is a little bit of a minus but not major obviously. Now onto the ports, they're everywhere you would expect. You got the port here for obviously syncing and charging. I personally would have preferred it on the bottom. I feel it's a little bit odd sticking out the side, but no big issue again. For the buttons, they're positioned where you would expect. You got a power button on top and also to the side. Now one complaint about the buttons with this phone is they're very flush to the phone and have not got much travel, so they do feel a little bit hard to press. And sometimes you don't know if you're actually pressing them, you've got to have a quick look or even just a little bit more of a feel. And that's the same with the power button. There you've got the 3.5mm jack for headphones. Now with this being a music phone, you obviously get the Beats by Dre earphones, which are really good, really high quality, a lot better than you get with most mobile phones. But what did disappoint me a little bit was actually the speaker on the back, because actually the sound quality was quite poor. It was acceptable, but for a music phone I was expecting a little bit more. And it sounded quite loud, but the actual sound quality was quite poor, sounded a bit tinny. Now obviously the phone comes with a camera, and it's 8 megapixels camera, and you get 2 LED flashes. Now it's autofocus as well, and the picture quality were quite decent. Now HTC are not renowned for their cameras and the quality of the cameras in the phones, and this was quite decent. It was acceptable. I think most people would be happy with it to take the odd pictures. But I think we get into a stage now with the likes of the iPhone 4S and other manufacturers coming to the market with really high quality cameras, and they're almost replacing compact cameras. And I wouldn't say this is anywhere close to a compact camera in terms of its quality, well at least a good quality compact camera. I would be more than happy to use this for general use, but for them like snaps of your family or your children and stuff, if you're wanting the best quality camera you can get in a phone, I'd definitely say look elsewhere, maybe an iPhone 4S or maybe something from Sony or even Nokia. Obviously you get a front-facing camera, which obviously you can use for like video calling, Skype, things like that, and it's good enough for that type of thing. Now this phone has capacitive buttons at the bottom, so no hardware buttons on the front. Now to be honest, this is the first phone I've used with these type of buttons, and they are quite responsive, and I've been quite impressed with them. They don't quite have that same obviously tactile feedback you get from a real button, but when you do press them they do vibrate, which is quite nice, and they're quite acceptable and you'll soon get used to them. Now in terms of weight, the phone is it feels quite nice in the hand. It's very well balanced, so it doesn't feel like it's going to fall out the hand. It balances nicely, which is really important from a touchscreen phone. When you're trying to navigate around the phone with one hand, it does fit in the hand quite nicely. Now, one complaint about this, with it being 4.7 inch screen, it's a little bit hard with one hand to reach the top of the screen, and it's a little bit of a struggle. And if you're holding it at the bottom like this, there's no way you can really reach to the top corner, and you kind of have to have the phone in your palm like this to reach the top. Then when it's in the palm, it's obviously more chance of sliding out your hand. So that's kind of one of the biggest down points about having a 4.7 inch screen. It's a little bit hard to navigate with one hand. Now if you're using two hands, obviously not a problem. And that's kind of trade-off with a big screen. I think for me the sweet spot might be 4.2 inch, 4.3 inch. I think 4.7 is just a little bit too big for me because I like to navigate around the phone with one hand. Now, maybe over time, because it's only been a few days, maybe over time I'll get used to using the one hand on this big screen and obviously using two hands even. But I think I personally would prefer a slightly smaller screen because it's just a little bit big for one-handed use in my opinion. So that's my first impressions of the HTC Sensation XL. Very impressed with the build quality from this device, and you kind of expect that nowadays from HTC because they are very good in terms of build quality. Overall, the general design is pretty good, no major complaints apart from that little button issue I mentioned. So stay tuned for the part 3 where I'll be going more into the OS and HTC Sense. So thanks for watching, I'll see you later. Goodbye.